During the week before Thanksgiving, we asked students for input to recognize some of our outstanding teachers. Nominations were made in response to the following prompt: which teacher has lifted you as a student in an exceptional way this semester? Who has gone the extra mile to help you learn new skills and ideas and has increased your confidence that you can succeed and plan for your future? Hundreds of students responded and dozens of instructors were individually nominated for recognition. The nomination of so many of our outstanding faculty is an indication of the widespread culture of caring and lifting that we find at Southern Virginia University and that we want to instill. Could we, before we hear from our three honorees today, just please rise in a round of appreciation for all of those who have lifted and our teachers here. Thank you very much. And just as a teacher, let me add that it is my privilege, and I know it's all of my colleagues' privilege, to be really part of this history that we are making at Southern Virginia University. We are dedicated to doing our best to see that you are properly educated and prepared for the world that's ahead of you, and it's been a privilege and an honor for all of us. It's no great reveal since we've had the text sent out this morning who our three honorees of this semester are. Our professors this semester are Alan Whitehead, Doug Cheney, and Dallin Lewis. And on our remaining time, I believe I was also chosen as the professor most likely to make students cry during a final. You will not hear from me today, though. Okay? We will hear first from Alan Whitehead. Currently, Alan's an instructor of psychology at Southern Virginia University, but he has also taught business and served as director of admissions since coming to Buena Vista in 2013. In his life before SVU, Alan had a successful career as an insurance broker with a large firm. He's a great example of lifelong learning that we want to instill in all of our students. He is currently a candidate for a PhD studying industrial and organizational psychology, so he's continuing to learn even as he teaches here at SVU. While an undergraduate student, he played varsity basketball for a place called Ricks College, now BYU, Idaho. Yes, there he was an NCAA American. Yeah. In 2013, Whitehead served as the assistant men's basketball coach for Southern Virginia. Professor Whitehead is known for how engaging he is in the classroom, designing fun activities that can apply concepts of psychology to experimental or to game situations. And even though psychology major is one of our newest majors in our curriculum, it has quickly become one of the more popular majors, and Alan has been able to introduce a number of you to the possibilities of that major. After Alan, we'll be pleased to hear from Doug Cheney. Doug is a mechanical engineer specializing in computer-aided design. He's developed 3D geometry algorithms for aerospace and defense companies. He's also contributed to research projects for the federal government. But Doug is a world traveler, another example of what we want to kind of instill in our students here. He has trained design engineers in locations throughout the United States, Europe, and Asia. He served as an industry advisor for graduate student thesis, graduate projects in Minnesota, in Purdue, and in Darmstadt, Germany. He grew up in a military family, living in Germany as a teenager, and then attended the California Institute of Technology. He served an LDS mission in New York City and then transferred to Brigham Young University, where he tutored in 3 different math labs while completing his education as a mechanical engineer. Professor Cheney joined the faculty as a full-time member just this year. Like the other math faculty, he is known for great commitment of time and effort to helping students succeed at and love mathematics. His current passion is teaching introductory math. And finally, we'll be pleased to hear from Dallin Lewis. Dallin Lewis is an assistant professor of English at the university. His scholarly research focuses on 18th century British literature. His passion is for instilling the love of literature, British or otherwise, to SVU students. Prior to Southern Virginia University, Professor Lewis taught as a lecturer at Gonzaga University, where he developed a literature course for non-English majors. At the University of Notre Dame, one of the best universities ever, I wonder who put that there, one of the best universities ever, he developed a course on religion and literature, which won several prizes. Professor Lewis is known for making texts and ideas come alive for his students. He is especially involved in our core curriculum, teaching writing, classics of Western literature, and America and the Enlightenment. Following Professor Lewis's remarks, we will close our meeting by singing Love One Another. Ali Vacanti, the sophomore class president from Nebraska, who is a double major in biology and philosophy, will offer the closing prayer. Professor Whitehead.
Well, these lights are bright. In the second grade, my teacher was a little bit taller than I was. She was a little woman from Japan who still had a thick accent. She would gather us around, as happens in elementary schools, on the rug, and we would sit there. And I remember that she would go around and she would tell us how much she loved us. I don't know if that happens as much anymore, but that stayed with me for all of these years. As was mentioned, I went to undergraduate education in Rexburg, Idaho. I don't know if you knew this, but it's a little cold there sometimes. Between classes one day, it was pretty quiet on campus. A teacher was coming out. I knew of him. I didn't know who he was. I'd never had classes with him. And he was walking, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 yards ahead of me. And there was this patch of ice on the walkway. He took a few steps and then jumped on it and slid for about 5 feet and then jumped off. And I thought, I need to know this guy. I later took a class from him, and it changed my life. So now I'm a teacher. Interestingly enough, I was voted most likely to become a teacher in high school. Now, in my class, we have a syllabus with policies and guidelines and things of that nature. But I also have 2 rules in all of my class, and I've asked my students to tell me what those 2 rules are. Can we hear it? Okay. That's pretty good. I told them they could do that in interpretive dance if they wanted to, but they chose with the yelling. Have fun, be happy. That's one rule, 1A and 1B. And take something with you. One thing is what I say. Often I'll go to the corner of the board and I'll draw a little box in it. So if you go into a room and there's an empty box up there, it might have been from me drawing that. And the point of that is there one thing that you can take from that experience that makes you different? And I would say that today. Is there one thing that makes you different because of your experiences? When you walk out that door, or that one, whichever one you walk out of, are you different because of your experiences? If not, what's the point? Right? So those are my 2 classroom rules, and those are the rules I'd like to espouse today while we're talking. The subject I've been asked to speak on is what's so great about teaching at Southern Virginia University. I've given a lot of thought to that, and my answer is me. Let me explain. I thought, as I've considered this, I thought, what is great about it? And I thought, it is me. Because of who I've become. I've changed because of my experiences here, teaching and learning with you. So often we talk about change in the abstract. It's this thing that's happening that we might look back on at some point. We'll go through our education. We take classes. We write papers. We have tests. We have athletic performances or musical performances or whatever it is. But rarely do we take the time to think about how we are different and how we have changed, what makes us unique and new because of the learning that we're having. In psychology, learning is a relatively permanent change in behavior based on experience. So therefore, what are you learning? How is your behavior different because of the experiences that you're having? This is an individual affair. This is something that each of us are responsible for. Each one of you, myself. We're all responsible for ourselves in this process of being here at an education, at university, in life. So how are you changing? What's making you different? I'd like to share some examples of some classes I teach and some assignments we do, and then I want to tell you why I'm different because of those. In my general psychology class, which is kind of a survey class for psychology, we talk a lot about various principles, but one of the things that it does is it brings out experiences that students have had. And some of those have been traumatic. And it's helped me, I hope, be a little bit more empathetic and understanding that we all have unique experiences. All of us are different. And we all struggle, and we all have challenges. That's helped me to be different and to change. That's one thing that I've learned from that. In our cognitive psychology class, cognition is essentially learning. We talk about memory. We talk about false memories and memory errors. And one of the things that it's helped me realize is, can I do a better job of remembering the experiences that I'm having, the things that I'm learning? Right? Sometimes it feels like we're putting all this in our head and it just falls out the ears or some other. We can't retain it. And I think about that, and I think about the times I'm with my family or my daughter's doing something. I'm trying to fumble with my phone to get a picture of that, rather than embracing that moment and remembering that and letting that become part of who I am. In organizational psychology class, I actually structured that class a little differently this last time I taught it. I structured the class as a business. They had a project that they needed to deliver to an organization. They had vacation days. How would you like that? A class with vacation days. They had vacation days that they could use. We had regular performance reviews. I learned that we can take classroom experiences and make them applied and make them something unique and a little bit different than we're used to of coming in and sitting down and taking notes. I think that we do an excellent job of that here at Southern Virginia. I teach a psychology of humor class. One of the things we talk about there in that class is jokes. A joke has a setup, and it has a punchline. I won't tell you any jokes today, because I'm not good at them. But similarly, in our lives, the experiences that we're having, the education that we attain in our lives is kind of the setup. And the punchline is our mission. What is it, the thing that we are trying to accomplish? What is it that drives us to get up in the morning and do something? My punchline, my mission, is to change the lives of my students one class at a time. And I hope I do that. I think it's a lot of fun to be in there with them. You know, as you go about your experiences, they're different than mine, right? So what's so great about teaching at Southern Virginia? Well, for me, it's me. And I think for you, being here, I hope it's you, because no one has the unique experiences that you do. No one has the exact same schedule that you do. No one has anything that's the same. You are unique, and you need to embrace that. How are you going to be different today and tomorrow because of the experiences that you're having? Each teacher presents differently. Embrace that. What can you learn from that? How can you be different? What is that one thing that makes you different? You know, in psychology, we talk a lot about human behavior and we study it. And it is important and it's fascinating. But I find great insight from Elder Boyd K. Packer, who says that true doctrine understood changes attitudes and behaviors faster than the study of behavior changes behavior. I don't think that discounts psychology. I hope not. But what he does say is that when we understand true doctrine, we want to be different. We want to align our lives with that. And I would suggest that true doctrine is found in mathematics and literature and all the other classes that you're taking here. I think it was Brigham Young that said that truth is our religion. I believe that. I believe these things will change your lives if you embrace them. Just like Mrs. Ishikawa, my second grade teacher, told me that she loved me, and that's now become part of who I am. And seeing a teacher, not in a classroom, just slide down some ice, and some other experiences I've had with him have helped change me. That's become part of who I am. So as you have your experiences in the classroom, I hope that you're taking those things, that you're taking one thing, at least one thing, from those experiences, and that you're different because of them. I know that I'm different because of my experiences teaching here at Southern Virginia, and I'm grateful for them. I'm grateful because of you and those opportunities I've had to share those with you. For I know that many great things will come to pass. Thank you.
I'm grateful for this opportunity to address you because, like most professors, I like speaking to captive audiences. I want to speak about this place, the people, and our purpose. What is this place? We are a small residential university on the Blue Ridge. These are some of the oldest mountains in the Western Hemisphere. They remind us that true, eternal principles exist and should be the foundation of our lives. We also have supersonic military jets that fly over the campus on a regular basis. Those, to me, remind us that we have a complex world with limitless opportunities for those who are willing to work hard. This is a residential campus. There's something special about leaving home, gathering together with other young adults, and rethinking your life. Not that you came from a bad life necessarily, but stepping back from it and focusing on key doctrines and principles and practices and making a decision who you really want to be and what kind of life you want to build. That is possible more likely in a residential university rather than other university setups. And I like the small classes. If I was teaching developmental math at most any other university, my classes could be the size of this audience, and I would have very little interaction with individual students. But here I know my students, I care about them, and I care if they fall asleep in my class. I mentioned that recently, and one of the students said at the previous university where he was, they didn't care. Well, here we care. Being a university, there are many opportunities, academic, as well as opportunities to learn academically, as well as to grow in opportunities to perform on the field, on stage, or in our community. That's the special place that is SVU. The people here, the students who gather to this campus come from a broad spectrum of backgrounds, cultures, family situations, academic histories. This is a wonderful place to be. This is not an exclusive place where we just get the top of the top academically and they don't know anything about real life. I wouldn't want to say anything negative about previous schools I've been at, but one reason I transferred was it was a little too nerdy for me. But here you've got a broad spectrum of students who interact in kindness, in openness. They take care of each other. They are sober. That's a big deal. Ask some of the professors here who could teach anywhere else, and they'll tell you teaching a class of sober students is a big deal. I am very pleased to be part of the faculty at this university. The members of the faculty, bar none, could earn more money and get more fame and have more resources anywhere else. They are here because they are consecrated. This is a sacred opportunity. They have given up a lot to be here. Whether it's a previous career that was successful and made it possible for them to switch to teaching, or an academic career where they were researching at places with bigger names and bigger budgets. The faculty are here for the students. That's the only reason they're here. If you ever question whether this is a university for students, you look at the qualifications of this faculty and you will understand it is. We are here to lift students. That's our first priority. I'm here to lift students. Teaching math is a means to that end. I could teach anything. Well, no, I could be asked to teach anything, and I could try, but lifting students is why I'm here. The administration has a clear vision of who we are and where we're going. They have a clear plan for getting us to self-reliance. I am very pleased with their leadership, and I'm pleased with the flexibility that I have to innovate and to try new things. Even if it's a harebrained idea, I have that flexibility. At other schools, that would not be the case. Finally, the purpose for why we are here. We are here to learn in an environment centered on the gospel of Jesus Christ. What does that mean? It gives me good answers to 3 very common objections that math teachers get. One of them is math is boring. Not in my classes. When we talk about the properties of zero, that it adds nothing, that it consumes you in multiplication, and if you try to divide by zero, you go to outer darkness. Zero is Satan. And if you're trying to find the restrictions on a rational function with variables in the denominator, we don't talk about restrictions, we talk about demons in the denominator. Those values of x that would send that expression to outer darkness. We have fun talking about the spiritual connections in math. On a more serious note, every variable has the number 1 in front of it, above it in the exponent, and below it in the denominator, but you don't see it. The number 1 is a type of Christ. He is always there for you. He leads you, He watches you from above, and He lifts you from below. That's the power of connecting eternal principles at this university. I could get fired for teaching that way at another university. Here, it's an accepted central part of who we are. Another objection that math teachers get is, why learn math? When am I ever going to use this? Well, the Apostle Paul taught us that there are 3 levels in heaven. And so I give 3 levels of answers. If you're a telestial student, it's to graduate. You got to check this class off in order to graduate. Those telestial students are doing the bare minimum to get by. I'm glad that they're doing what they can, but I wish they would raise their thinking. Terrestrial students recognize that learning to think abstractly with numbers and letters and stuff trains your mind so that in any career you can solve problems we don't even know exist. How can I train my students to solve problems I don't even know exist? I can't. But I can train them to think critically. I can train them to not be intimidated by a bunch of variables and numbers and functions and graphs and stuff, but to just logically work through it, break it down. Don't be intimidated by it. Celestial students recognize that the reason to learn math is to become a better parent. So that in several years, when you have a daughter crying over her math homework, you sit down next to her and you say, I struggled with math, and I went through it, and I figured it out, and I can help you to do that. And you can dry those tears, and you can help that young daughter overcome one of the major barriers to succeeding in math and many other subjects, the attitude or the bias of the parents. I hope that my students will help their children to be comfortable learning math or any subject and not fear any subject. Finally, students tell me they can't learn math. What are the spiritual answers to that? To say you can't learn math essentially means that it doesn't come naturally. All of us have things that come naturally. We have subjects that we just love and we just internalize easily. We have skills that just seem to have been there from the beginning. That's natural ability. My theory is those were skills and concepts that you mastered before you were born. And you brought them with you. That's where natural ability comes from. So if you aren't natural at math, you just didn't take enough math classes in the pre-existence. Welcome to my class. Now we learn math. I honestly believe that students who struggle to learn math and learn it are making more progress from an eternal perspective than students who have a natural ability and are coasting in another class. We can learn anything with consistent effort over time. The Savior taught us there are always second chances. And in my classes, there are second chances. But there are no shortcuts. That is a spiritually true principle. In life, there are second chances. There should always be second chances. But there should be no shortcuts. If you want to learn something, you do the work. Finally, the atonement of the Savior not only frees us from sin and helps us to overcome our mistakes, it enables us to learn. It enables us to learn anything that we decide to learn for a celestial purpose. And my students who have embraced the idea that learning math has a higher purpose and that the Savior will help them to do so are doing well. And every semester that I give my students good grades, I know that that is a battle won. And it means a lot to me. This is a place prepared for this generation, to prepare to lead our society through this generation, based on the rock-solid principles of the restored gospel of Jesus Christ. And I am grateful to be here. Thank you.
In my writing classes right now, we are practicing for oral presentations. And so I'm having them run through drills about posture and eye contact and hand gestures. So if you are one of my writing students, and if you are wondering, is Professor Lewis really self-conscious about his own presentation skills up here? The answer is absolutely. I am kind of terrified. So don't do as I do as I say, and so forth. I'm also grateful for this opportunity to speak with you. I'm also grateful that my wife, Janelle, can be here. I'd like to begin by telling you a brief story about her as a way to introduce ourselves and just kind of share with you what an amazing person she is. We were married when we were both college students, and right before the time that she finished college, we got pregnant with our first child. In fact, the due date for that pregnancy was 1 week after she was supposed to take her final set of exams and finish college. What can I say? We can count backwards from 9. So you can imagine that semester was really stressful and difficult for her. She's taking a full slate of classes. She is in her third trimester. She's working 20 hours a week at a local cafe. And while she was working there, right around this time of year, a couple weeks before the semester ended, she had a very traumatic experience. She was serving her customers, and she feels this terrible pain in the back of her head. And her face starts to go, at least half of her face, this side of her face starts to go numb. And she knows something is wrong because her customers are looking at her in a very strange way. So she rushes to find me. We go to the hospital. They put us right at the front of the line, which is the last thing you want to do when you go to the hospital. You don't want to be put to the front of the line. And they take her in, and fortunately it wasn't a stroke, which is what they thought it might be. It's what's called Bell's palsy. Bell's palsy is a condition that comes when a virus attacks the nerves in your head, and it causes half of your face to go numb and just sort of droop, so you can't have any control of it. It's like it's paralyzed. So we talked to our OBGYN and said, well, what can we do to recover? And he said, the best thing you can do for your body is to have the baby as early as possible. So I'd like to schedule an induction date this week, if possible. And my wife said, I can't do that. I'm in the middle of school. This is my last semester. I got to finish out. He said, well, do whatever you can to make accommodations to try to take care of this as soon as we can. So she talked to her professors, made some arrangements. And then on the first day of finals week, that Monday, she took 4 exams, she finished the final paper, and she went into the hospital at 9 o'clock that night. And then 4 o'clock the next morning, we had our first baby girl, Dorothy. And it's just so impressive. And I was just, it's just quite an accomplishment for a day, right? Quite a bucket list to take care of. Now, I share that story to give you a little bit of advice. We're about a week away from finals, and this is the time of the semester where a lot of students go to their professors and say, is there anything I can do to take my finals early? There is one thing you can do. You can show up to your professor's office 9 months pregnant, with half your face totally paralyzed, and as drool begins to drip down your chin, say these exact words: my doctor says I need to have the baby right away, or my face will be stuck like this forever. Can I take my finals early? And I guarantee you, if you do that, you will take your finals early. So, just a little tip, something to work towards. Now, I've been asked to speak today, not about my wife's face. That's just a little bit extra. But I've been asked to speak today about why I love teaching at SVU. And I'd like to answer this question by discussing how an SVU education helps prepare all of us to deal with the complexities and ambiguities of the world around us. Because the transition from high school to college can be very disorienting, right? Suddenly you have to manage your own schedule, your own shopping, maybe even your own laundry. College can be intellectually disorienting as well. Students often arrive with a clear set of core beliefs about how the world is, has been, and should be. Core beliefs that help them sort people and ideas into right and wrong, good and evil, true and false. But the bright lines between these binaries are quickly blurred as university classes introduce students to a world far more ambiguous, complex, and messy than they might have assumed. As an instructor of the course America and the Enlightenment, I see this disorientation in our regular excursions to Thomas Jefferson's Monticello. The house tour through that stately mansion reinforces the idea of Jefferson that most of us grow up with: the dignified, brilliant politician, the curious thinker, the great founding father. But the slave tour that we take immediately afterwards reminds us that Monticello and the life that Jefferson built there depended upon the exploitation of over 600 enslaved Africans that Jefferson owned in the course of his life. That yes, he is central to the American founding, but also that he fully participated in our nation's original sin. Disorienting as such experiences may be, they are a fundamental feature of a college education. We can never think clearly or well unless we are willing to confront the entire range of human experience in all its complexity and ambiguity. Such intellectual encounters are at the heart of the liberal arts curriculum that is so fundamental to what we do here at SVU. For a liberal arts education is designed to provide us with the intellectual skills and mental tools that allow us to reflect on evidence, to critique our assumptions, and to think for ourselves. But the pursuit of thinking for ourselves can never be the be-all and end-all of a university education, because it leaves unanswered a crucial question. When we have confronted life's complexities and ambiguities, what then comes next? That is, what values, what beliefs, what core truths will we affirm and commit to after they have been examined and analyzed? A college education teaches us to be skeptical and critical, and rightly so. But skepticism and criticism alone do not lead us to act. Rather, we act based on the principles and values that we hold dear. A true liberal arts education, then, the kind that we strive for here at SVU, must cultivate a commitment to values that should be affirmed, defended, and lived, as well as the freedom to think for oneself. Let me take as an example of this type of education one of the greatest Americans of the 1800s, Frederick Douglass. Douglass was born enslaved around 1818 in the state of Maryland, his mother enslaved to the man, most likely Douglass's father. Against the wishes of his owner, Douglass taught himself to read, and he found his education both liberating and painfully disorienting, because reading helped him realize that his mental freedom was in such contrast with his physical bondage. Having begun to think for himself, he could not bear to suffer bondage any longer. After a number of years, Douglass finally escaped successfully to the north and joined forces with radical abolitionists. And as Douglass studied up on the American nation that he had been born into, he became firmly convinced that the U.S. founding and its Constitution was thoroughly corrupted by the protection it offered slavery, and he wished to see the Union dissolved. He cried, "Talk to me of the love of your liberty of your Washingtons, Jeffersons, or Henrys. They were strangers to a just idea of liberty. They wrote of the liberty in the Declaration of Independence with one hand, and with the other clutched their brother by the throat." But over many years, while Douglass continued to perceive, as well as anyone, how deep the roots of slavery ran through the United States and its founding documents, he nonetheless began to perceive a set of natural rights and values also enshrined in those same documents that spoke against American slavery. In the Declaration of Independence and in the Constitution's preamble, Douglass read of how all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that the Constitution was formed to establish justice, to promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty. Douglass became convinced that these truths ran deeper than whatever protections the Constitution might offer Southern slave owners. And as the United States marched closer and closer to civil war, Douglass affirmed clear and strong that the deepest values of the Constitution lay with the abolitionists. He trusted that enough goodness remained in the American idea to eradicate slavery. He later wrote, "The language of the Constitution is we the people, not we the white people, not even we the citizens, not we the privileged class, not we the high, not we the low, but we the people. And if Negroes are people, they are included in the benefits for which the Constitution of America was ordained and established." He continued, "The Constitution, as well as the Declaration of Independence and the sentiments of the founders of the Republic, give us a platform broad enough and strong enough to support the most comprehensive plans for the freedom and elevation of all the people of this country, without regard to color, class, and clime." Douglass, in other words, saw the paradoxes of the American founding, perceived the flaws of figures like Jefferson, but he refused to settle for a posture of skeptical detachment or cynicism. Instead, he perceived even farther to see the virtues of liberty and equality that coexisted with those flaws, and he committed himself to supporting and defending those virtues. What Douglass shows us, and what we here at SVU strive to teach, is that our education must not only help us confront truth, painful as it may be, but also it must help us remain loyal to that truth all the same. It is not enough for truth to be known, but it must be loved. And to be loved, it must be lived. That is why we study the Book of Mormon alongside Paradise Lost, why we serve in our communities while also preparing for exams, why we commit to a code of honor while broadening our horizons. We do all this, yes, to see things as they really are, to engage directly with the world's complexities and ambiguities, but also to deepen our commitment to truth and goodness. As the English writer G.K. Chesterton wrote, "Love is not blind. That is the last thing love is. Love is bound, and the more it is bound, the less it is blind. The more we bind ourselves to truth, the more clearly we will see it. This principle is at the core of an SVU education, and that is why I love teaching here." Thank you.